we're gonna get our own piece of the pie now. Like we're not gonna ask
and
for
it's a black
it. We're
pie.
gonna make
like
our
we're not
pie.
even gonna lie. Like it's a
we're
black
making our
pie.
pie. We ain't gonna.
Like yeah, we're not asking you for ingredients, bro. Like it's a black ass chocolate pie, bro.
Blackberry.
Yeah.
What's going on, y'all? This is episode 4 of the Cut the Small Talk podcast, and today we're going to get into a little bit of entrepreneurship. So I'm going to just start with asking you. Go straight into it, man. What is entrepreneurship to you? How does that play out in your regular life, man?
Yeah, I don't know. Entrepreneurship is kind of more of taking your dream and actually making it happen. You know, like I tell you all the time, I think almost everybody's an entrepreneur. Or the difference between entrepreneurs and dreamers is action. Like literally, you know, you have conversation with everybody. I had an idea for this. I should do this, or you should do this, or we should do this. The only difference between them is they keep it as a dream. They keep it as a thought. The entrepreneur is like, oh, I got an idea. We should do this. I'm gonna go do this, and they do it. And that's the only thing I think that makes the difference between everybody else who has these ideas and people who want to, you know, who are actual entrepreneurs. It's just you go in and you make it happen. It's the action behind it.
What would you say to somebody that kind of finds it hard to hit that start button? Like, you know what I mean? Because I agree. Like, it's really, that's the only difference. And we've talked about it before, kind of. That really is the only difference. So how would you even tell somebody that's sitting on the idea, they've been sitting on it for a year maybe, they just don't know what to do? You know what I mean? How would you?
I would think it's figuring out the best practice, because the thing is, I think people think that because, like, to be an entrepreneur, you have to be the one doing everything. Like, you know, it could literally be, I have this idea, all right, let me figure out the pieces to put together to create what I'm thinking. Because, like, for me, like, I'm not the most artistic. Like, you told me to draw something. If I got to draw my own logo, I'm done. Like, business is done there. So for me, it's like, you know, okay, well, what do I know? Who do I know that could do a logo? Who do I know that, you know, knows is really good with numbers? You know, I think being an entrepreneur, just that's all it is. It's the action. Like, okay, how am I going to make it happen and bring the pieces needed? Like, you know, like with Youre, with the app, like, you know, with the app, it's, you don't have to know how to code. It's good if you know, but, you know, like, I think with y'all, like, like y'all can sit here and be like, hey, cool, we got this idea, which, you know, I want to figure out how, you know how y'all came with the whole story behind it, because y'all got a big app going right now.
So I'll let her break it down, man. How do we come up with the black app?
Well, I think it's like what you said, like how do you get someone to start? Even with the black app, it's just like believing that, hey, you know what, I have an idea, I can contribute to this space, you know what I mean? Like this space has a need, like whether you do hair, whether you're in fitness, whatever your specialty is, just like realizing and saying, hey, you know what, I can actually contribute to this. Because when Ramond posted the post about, hey, you know, there's black businesses, they're circulating, let's like do this every month or every day, let's try to support black businesses in general as a lifestyle. I'm thinking like, hey, I can contribute to this space. So if you see something, if you see someone, even if it's someone you don't know, but you can contribute to that space, whether it's financially, right? We have philanthropists, right? They just contribute financially. You know, investors are those are people who are contributing financially, but maybe you can contribute with a skill. So just deciding like, hey, you know what, I have something and I can contribute to this platform or to this space, you know, and just, I will, you know what I mean? And just deciding I will.
Yeah, I think with what you're saying, it's important that your business is scalable too. You want to make some money, okay? Because if you're not making any money, it's a hobby, right? Right. So you gotta be generating some revenue that you can even live off of and live happy and have the freedom. So to answer your question, like to me, as far as being an entrepreneur, just the freedom of it. You know what I'm saying? And you know that if you don't have the discipline to really take care of business with the amount of freedom that you do get as an entrepreneur.
That's the key.
Yeah,
That's the big key.
it is. You know, sometimes I'm like, okay, you can't hit snooze no more. You know what I'm saying? Like, you gotta get up. You gotta get up. So just having that discipline as a business owner is so important in that freedom. You know, but the freedom just don't come right away. Like, you gotta work for it. You know, this team no sleep right now.
Guaranteed.
So all that comes.
Especially because a lot of times when you get into entrepreneurship, you're still working a corporate job to kind of even, you know, you got to live. Like, you know what I'm saying? To even, you know what I mean? So I think while it's not making money, it's a lot of work with no income at first. You know what I mean? And you kind of got to be ready for that part too.
Right.
It's not for the faint of heart. Like, I think people think like, oh, and that's why some people try, you know, they want to be like, all right, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. And they realize the work that goes in before the final outcome. And they're like, oh, I can't sleep. I got to save money. I got to really network.
Right.
You
And
know.
that's just really counting the costs, right? Like, it's saying, hey, if I do this, it's going to mean that, like, I have less time for social activities, right? Like, I have less time to spend my money frivolously, like, to other things. So it's just, like, really deciding, like, I'm going to count the cost if I'm going to really do this. You know what I mean? That's what we talk about when we're saying scalable.
So I got a question, because you hit on a big piece with that. Entrepreneurship it's a lot of sacrifices. You know what I mean? What's one of the biggest sacrifices you've seen, like, just building your own business that you kind of haven't been as good in this area because you're doing this? You know what I mean?
I'm glad you asked me that, because I actually coach my clients on that, being balanced.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So sometimes it's like, my mother wants to spend time with me, my friends want to talk on the phone. You know, people think just because you at home, you ain't doing nothing. And it's like, wait, no, I'm working. Like, I'm working for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm really busy. And so just having that balance, you know, even my own personal me time, you know, because sometimes you get real stressed out and you like all over the place, and you just got to kind of come back to center. You know, you got to meditate, you got to pray, and you got to prioritize stuff. So that's so important when it comes to starting up a business and looking at all the dimensions and all the pieces of it. Is just really staying balanced, you know.
How do you do? So do you actually write down priorities?
Yeah,
like,
I am a sticky. I put stuff on paper.
Sticky notes everywhere.
Yeah, sticky notes everywhere.
Behind the bread, it's a little sticky note right there. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because if I don't see it, it ain't happening. My Google calendar is full, you know what I'm saying? So I literally have to have non-negotiables every day. Like, every day I got to make sure that
I like
do
that word.
Non-negotiables for myself, non-negotiables for my business, non-negotiables for my loved ones. And so, you know, some days I might come up short in one area, but I got to know that I got to hit that the next day. And so I'll look at it on a weekly basis, like, okay, you know, and I'll grade myself, like, you got to do this week in the area of your friends and your relationship, like, you got to do better. So yeah,
Non-negotiable. That's a bomb word to put into put into balance. Like, this is something I'm not going to kind of shake and move from. You know what I mean? Like, this, whatever extra is extra, but I can't move from this.
And grading yourself, because I think that's one of the, especially as an entrepreneur, you have to be real with yourself.
Right.
Because now it's you. You know, you don't have a boss to tell you, hey, you're slacking here, can you pick this? Like, if you're slacking, something's not working, it's because of you. So, like, I like that too. Like, you're grading yourself. Like, hey, like, holding yourself accountable. Like, all right, I didn't do this. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Like, okay, let me make sure I'm focusing today on this part. Like you said, balance. It's not always going to be, oh, I hit every single one perfectly. But it becomes with, all right, well, what did I do well? What I need to work on a little bit?
I know one thing that we always talk about, I know when we get into like a mode that we just knocking out stuff, and then she always says, there's so much to do. And that's kind of just, I told her it's kind of always gonna be like that when you know what I mean? Like, that's something that you kind of find out on the go, is like, if you really wanna be scaling your business, it's kind of always gonna be so much to do. So how do y'all, when y'all look at y'all, like, you know, you realize that you booked 12 things for Thursday and then you forgot about it's your friend's kid's birthday too. How do y'all break that down? Like, where do you start?
I think you're freest when you have, one, the most information and a plan. So I don't believe that you go into a day without a plan. And so even like for our business, I always say like information is like our best friend. Like as long as we know, then we know what to do and we can't freak out. Like your emotions are your worst enemy. So I just believe like the more you know, the better your plan, the more organized that you are, then the more successful you're bound to be in the future, because you really don't know. It almost always looks like a mess in the middle, right? So like at the end, and that's when it's going to be like the fruit of everything you've worked for. At the end of that, that's when you want to be like, oh, thank God I was prepared. Thank God I had a plan. Thank God I stuck to it. Thank God I had a list. You know what I mean? So I think that the more you know, the more information you have, and the best, like the more organized your plan is, the better your success is in the future, even if you don't see it now. Yeah.
I think sometimes you just got to realize too that you don't have to have it all the way figured out. Nobody does. You know what I'm saying? That's the biggest piece, is like you be thinking that you need to be perfect in every realm. I should have, did this in that interview, or we should have did 1,300 businesses instead of 12. Or, you know what I mean? Yeah. But nobody got it all the way figured out. So I think even going back to what the original question was, just telling somebody just to start. You know what I mean? It's so important to just start. Like change it from an idea to actually doing something if you're trying to, and be passionate about it. Because if you're just doing it for any certain reason, you know what I mean? That reason will fizzle out. But if you're passionate about it, you can power through little bumps here and there. You know what I mean?
Well, how's that been for you too? Because like doing music, it's kind of saying it's still entrepreneur. Like you are your business, you have to run things. But if you don't put a track out, because if you're so trying to be a perfectionist on it, if you never put that perfect song out, you'll never have any music out. Like how did that kind of transition for you? For all right, sometimes I got put out, other people can find it as to be that perfection almost. But so how did that kind of transition for you, being like music and business together?
Man, it's super tough, because I am like that, especially with your own music. It's kind of like you feel like you put your soul into something. Like some things you don't even know if you're making it for people to hear in your mind. Like I'm just, that's like my ventilation system, kind of like that's where I'm just venting sometimes. You know what I mean? So I think you just have to sit down at some point. What I had to do for real, because I'm so such a perfectionist in music, is I had to create a way where I could just do random stuff. So what I was doing was like, once a week I would just get on a random beat and just put it out. So it didn't become like a thing for me to just be holding on to work that much. I had something where I could just throw out consistently, stay consistent to, like, if you got a fan base or a customer base, it's the same thing. Stay consistent in some way, and then while you're working on that thing that you perfection it, you still got something for a follower to be like, at least I can see this. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big thing. Even consistency, that word for me is big. That changed everything when I was just like, my goal is going to be consistency this year. And my whole life changed when that was the thing, you know what I mean? Because it's so easy to just get riled up to do something, start doing it, and then be like, because shit happens to everybody. You know what I mean? So, I think that was a big thing for me, is just being like, find a way to be consistent while you're still perfecting whatever it is, right? I think somebody would rather take an okay to good version of you than no version of you for a year. You know what I mean? So just find a way that even if, if you got a merch brand or something, even if it's not your best design, keep working on the best ones, but throw out something in the meantime. You know what I mean? Change the color of the shirt, or change you know what I mean? Like, just throw something that they can, in the meantime, still be latching on to. You know what I'm saying? So, so for you, tell me a little bit about your business. Is it a fitness-based business, or?
Yeah, I'm a fitness and empowerment coach online. Okay. So in our industry just is transitioning to this online space because of COVID. Yeah. And so it was kind of doing that before all this happened, but it wasn't like it is right now. Yeah. And so I had to take a step back and reevaluate everything that I've done in traditional gyms and different environments that I've trained my clients in, and it's different. If you would have told me 20 years ago that I'd be training people online, I'd be like, that's an oxymoron. That don't make no sense. Right. That's not going to happen. I don't know where you're getting that stuff from, but no, it's so real, and it's crazy because it's a lot more interpersonal online than it is in a gym, because usually people come in, I see you for an hour, you're gone. Right. Now I have coaching calls, I got one-on-ones with them. I mean, we're doing stuff over Zoom and stuff, but you know, I got people in Alabama and California and Florida, so I'm not just limited to one little space, you know? And so in that, instead of just focusing so much on, you know, do this many sets, this many reps, I explore the things of the weight that they're carrying. Like, why do you keep going in these cycles? Why are you being inconsistent? Like, why are you hiding behind food emotionally? And those are the things that we address, because ultimately they can go online and download any kind of workout. You know what I'm saying? You don't, but it's like, you're going to keep doing that. How many fad diets you're going to go through before you really actually change, you know? And so it has to be a lifestyle. So, you know, a lot of times where I'm dealing with things with people from their childhood that they carried on through their adulthood, the rejection, abandonment, all that stuff, it shows up in them not wanting to take care of themselves.
That's crazy. So you almost like fitness therapy almost.
Yeah. And you know, at first I thought, because I have my BA in psychology, and when I started training, I was like, dang, I'm not even using my degree. And oh, yes, I am. Yeah.
Especially in that, because you, like you said, like, you know, I think that's one of the biggest things, because it's almost even like, you know, with business, like with fitness, is about just doing, like, until you take that first step to actually go and do it. You know, there's always that, like, I have a bench in my house, and I'm like, oh, I got this, I'll be right there, I could do it. I'll be on the couch looking at it like, I should just go do it. But it'd be difficult. I'm like,
yeah, you got the laundry on
So it's funny, because there's a lot of mental, a lot of mental behind it you don't realize.
Yeah, I mean, even people paying for their memberships, not using them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we're all guilty. But it's like, it's time, because it's almost, and it's crazy, but people think that they have to get a bad diagnosis from the doctor before they can do something. Right. I mean, not even pre-diabetic. Like, once the doctor tells me I'm diabetic, then I'll do something. What kind of mess is that? No. No, we take better care of our cars than we do ourselves. It's crazy. So that's kind of the nuts.
What's been, I guess, probably one of the biggest transitions, like probably the one thing that really stands out from having to go from, because that's a whole different, like, transformation from that, but like, was it maybe like a mental thing? Was it like maybe more you really had to be like, okay, I really have to switch this? Like, what was kind of like one thing that really stuck out to you during like this transition period?
Well, there are a few. One, I'm not used to being on my phone like 24/7. Just really actually digging into people's lives. Because it was easy just to, okay, we about to do this 45-minute HIIT workout, you know, and then I'll see you next week. That was easy, but I never really was able to address the real issue. So now I'm able to actually address the problem.
I feel like that's so important, man. I never even thought about it like that. Like, sometimes you have habits because of almost traumatic stuff, like that comes out in your physical work. You know what I mean? Yeah. I never thought of it like that. Like that, you know, like you said, there's a bunch of probably apps and any way you want to go about just working out, but you know what I mean? Yeah. So I got a question actually for both y'all. You know what I mean? Being a black woman in business. You know what I mean? Where's the challenges? Where is it? Is there any advantages? Because there's probably some slick advantages in there too.
Slick advantages are like, I think that it's just, I think it's just that people are really willing to support you right now, which is great. But to your point of it being scalable and it being something that can actually benefit people is, I think the challenge of the entrepreneur is like, ask yourself, is your idea something that can really help people? So don't rely on the fact that maybe, yeah, the times are very supportive of black women right now, but do they support your cause? And is your cause legitimate to the community? You know what I mean? Legitimate to helping the community like grow in a sense. So I just think that like, yeah, that's the advantage, is that everyone is very willing to support. And there's a lot of people who are very much like, just because you're a black woman, whatever you're doing, I'm down. You know what I mean? But you have to make sure and
but that's got to be recent,
have integrity.
Though, right? What you're talking about?
No, I actually don't.
Like that?
I don't know if it's recent. To kind of like piggyback off of some of the conversations you guys have had prior to on this podcast about like just people supporting black women You can be a token too, where people want to support you just because they want to say I supported a black woman. So it actually has always been a nature and like a factor in whether or not black women businesses are successful, is because sometimes we do have people who will support us just because we're black women, or just because we're women. You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to be that we're black women, but I think that the challenge for the black woman or for the woman in general is just deciding and like really searching your business. Is this actually helpful to the people I'm trying to service? Is this, just integrity in a sense, And that's the point of the entrepreneur, because if your business is not a resource, if it's not helping someone outside of yourself, it will not succeed after a couple of years. So I think that's the challenge of the entrepreneur, no matter what support that you have.
So
I don't know.
A quick, just to bounce off that. So you said sometimes you can be token.
Yeah, and you can take that and use that.
How does that feel for you being tokenized in some areas?
Sometimes it's okay because it's time, right? So sometimes it's okay. So sometimes it's really okay because it's like, hey, hello, you should have already seen me. But in the same regard, it's still, it's always the individual's responsibility to make sure that whatever you're offering another is actually true. You know what I mean? That like you're saying, you're giving advice to individuals. You got to make sure you're doing the work, right? You can't just say self-care Sundays and not also take space for yourself. So I do believe that it always comes down to integrity. When we're talking about entrepreneurship, we're talking about starting a business that's outside someone owning you, or outside someone telling you your value, that really ends up giving you the lifestyle that you want. And so that all comes with integrity. That all encompasses integrity. So I think that's the challenge, is just maintaining your integrity. Like, what I'm doing is helping people. How do I scale it?
Kind of what you said about your worth. That was what really triggered me to really start my business, because I went to I won't mention my employer, but I went to my boss. I was like, yo, it's time for a raise. You know what I mean? He's like, you're married, your annual comes. I'm like, I'm not talking about that one. I want like, okay, but what I'm doing and what you paying me, they don't match up. And he was like, well, this is all I can give you. I'm like, I just got tired of people telling me how much I was worth.
There you go. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I am about to establish this.
Yeah. Let me ask, what was that profession? Like, what was it? Without naming the case, are you able to? You trying to get it together?
Smart talk.
It was a city entity. I can say that. So yeah, I was offended. I was like, I'm sick of this. Like, this is who are you to tell me? Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm like, nah, I'm cool on this. So, and that's kind of really what just put the fire under me to really start knocking this thing out. So now, and it's funny because it's flipped. For the amount that I charge for my services, it's almost like people don't think they're worth it. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute, you'll drop 5 G's to go to Disneyland, you know what I'm saying? Or any vacation, you'll buy a MacBook for your son, but you can't invest in your own life? Like, you rather be paying for prescription drugs and whatnot. Yeah. And I'm just like, this is so ridiculous to me. So from that, I haven't experienced it as far as being a black female-owned business. I think if anything, people are shocked when they see me on Zoom. They're like, but they see me on Facebook too, so they kind of know who I am. But ultimately, it's them. It's like, no, you're worth this. Because you're quick to be like, oh, I'm priceless. Really? Okay, well, here's the price. And now they have the reservations like, oh, wait, hold up. I got to talk to my husband. Like, your husband don't think you worth this?
Right. But on the real, that like worth is something that we've talked about before, too. And sometimes it's so hard to set your own price, right? Yeah. Like to set, and it should go up as you grow, for sure. But sometimes it's getting started like, This is
deciding that you're worth a price, right?
At
saying
first.
I'm not going to give this out for free anymore. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to do that.
Especially
like,
when
even
when you started giving it out for free, maybe, you know what I mean? So how do y'all, determine your worth? Like, is it compared to something? Is it just be like, in my mind, I'm worth 1,000, I need 1,000? You know what I'm saying? Like, or
I think I think it's based on like you decide that you're worth something first, right? You say, hey, I'm going to charge. I'm done not charging. I know what I have is valuable. Why? Because it's valuable to me. Like it's helped me grow, so it's valuable to me. But I think the other part is like then you challenge the person. Because some person might come and give you 100 for what you just did, and then some person might come and give you 500. You go with Mr. 500. Because Mr. 500 sees something that the hundreds don't see. So you say, no, there has to be more people who believe in me like this one individual. You know what I mean? So I think it's just about not only believing in yourself, but trusting in the product and the effect of that product, what you get back from people. You know what I mean? We're so hard to receive a compliment. Someone says, girl, you should be selling this for like $50 because your competitor is selling it for $60 or something. You know what I mean? Like learn to just say, okay, I'm worth that, or I should go up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think it's tough too, because then like in the community, you're almost like, oh, well, we want to help them, but you know, especially when it comes to family and friends, and everyone's like, oh, let me get the family discount, and man, as much as you want to, at the same time, you're like, yeah, it's like help me build first, and then I got you. But you know, like what you're doing now is you're helping me get to this stage. But when you know you're trying to take from the beginning. You're taking from basically almost your direct pockets because I'm working to build right now, and it makes it tough. Like I remember even with Nipsey when I think it was $1,000 for a mixtape one time.
He did 100 first and then 1,000.
Yeah, and you know people were looking like, oh, he's tripping, but he knew. He's like, look, I don't even need all y'all to buy this. Like this is, and certain people like I trust you. Bam, here it is. I'm gonna buy it. Certain people believed in it. He believed in it enough to put it out there, even if. No one ended up doing it. He did it.
You already put it out.
And it's like, and then you see where he's at. He became, and you're like, I bet you now people would pay that price for it.
Yeah.
Like he set his value, and you know we're so quick. Like you're talking about, kind of almost trading those dollars for hours. Like, hey, I could go do 40, 50 hours for somebody else, and then I'm gonna come home and do nothing for myself. And I think that's what people really. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur to do that. You just have to realize, like, what can I do? If I could put all this effort for somebody else to build their dreams, what am I going to do to build my dream, to build my lifestyle?
For myself.
I know even Dame Dash said something like, we got to stop always grinding for our first name and grind for our last name. Because you can't, whatever position you got, you can't just give it to your kid if you're working for it. You know what I mean? But if you got a business, come on work. You know, whoever it is. You know what I mean? And that's when you talk about your last name, grinding for your family. Like, you know what I mean? And I think that's super important, man. You know what I mean? Is that. But, you know, worth was always a tough thing for me, especially in music. Because there's so many people that might do what you do for free. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and especially in the beginning. Like, you know, so if they ask me to do it, and I'm like, you know, what's the budget? And they like, oh, we don't really have, you know what I mean? Yeah. But it's for exposure, or, you know, and at the beginning, you're doing a lot of that. You know what I mean? And then you kind of build that up. But at some point, you just kind of have to set it and be like, if you don't think I'm worth that, maybe I'm not to you. But you know what I mean? Like, some people would, you know, somebody got mad at me for even asking for something, and like for a feature. And I was like, if you didn't want me on it, then why would you even reach out? You know, if I'm not worth nothing, why would I, you know what I mean? And then when I went to Europe, somebody paid me $1,000 for a feature. Yeah. And then, you know, I was like, I would never have asked just somebody random just $1,000, you know what I mean? So worth has always been a tough thing to just kind of figure out price-wise, you know what I mean? Sometimes, you know what I mean? But I think you hit the point though. It's like we are worth something, and that's the first point. You got to be like, my time itself is worth something.
Yeah, and I think that's what people forget too. Is, you know, when you're doing services, it's like, you know, people think you're paying for, like, you know, I was talking to an electrician of mine, and he's like, look, like I charge a lot of money. So if you had me working for you, you're paying for it. He's like, but you're not paying for me now. You're paying for the school I went through, the knowledge I know. You know, like I could knock this out in 15 minutes. But the reason I can knock this out in 15 minutes, you can't. Like, you know, I can, and I could do it. You know, I'm not going to be someone else that takes 2 hours to do it, because my knowledge and my time I put in to master this craft, that's what you're paying for. So if you don't want to be, like, I'm going to get it, it's going to be good. But if you're looking for, you know, something less, and, you know, sometimes they'll hook you, but, like, you know, people think like, oh, I'm paying for, what am I paying for? You knocked that out in 5 minutes. That's because them 20, 30 years I put in made me be able to do that in 5 minutes. Like, it's part of that value where you have to, like, people have to start to learn, like, I put the work in for this.
I think it's a tough part too, but we got to do it. Sometimes it's putting the foot down on friends. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we used to throw events, and they used to, this is a specific time, we threw an event, and somebody came, walked to the front, and they was like, "Can you, help me cut the line?" I was like, "Yeah." And then they was like, "Can you help me get in free too?" And I was like, I said, "Bro, let me holler at you, man." At this point, are you helping me or am I helping you?
Right.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
That's a lot.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but people kind of think because they know you, that whatever level you get to, you're still on their level. Right. And it's like we're humans. We're always gonna be eye to eye, but I'm building something. Yeah. This on this level, we're not the same. You do something that you do better than I do, and this part is what we building. So I think sometimes we got to put our foot down on that too and just be like, bro, you my bro for sure. Know that, you know what I mean? But if you really want to support, it comes with a price, and maybe a discount, maybe.
But definitely a price.
But not for free. You know what I'm saying? It costs me to do this.
Price.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
And it's crazy because I feel like people forget that you can even really help and support people, especially now, for free. Like if you don't have the money to be like, hey, I could pay for this. If just by sharing, spreading the name, referring people, like that little stuff, like even just hit me like, hey, I see what you're doing. Like, hey, congrats. Hey, like, if I have a, ribbon cutting, like people come and show up. Like, it's the little things that people don't realize. It says a lot too. Like, I know the people who support me, whether it was financially, whether it was morally, whatever it was, I know them. And I also know people who be like, oh, I see what you're doing. But I never see them do something that I'm doing. Like,
do you see what I'm doing?
Yeah,
do you see
and it gotta
until it's big, then they want us.
Now you see what I'm doing.
And it gotta go both ways too. That's a lot of times people that I'm more ready to help or work with is somebody that's already supported me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so that dynamic is you can't be mad at a lack of support if you ain't supporting nobody else either. You know what I mean? Somebody told me if you want to work with somebody, sometimes you got to do something for them that's more than what you even want from them. You know what I mean? So we got to realize that, we got to take that into our own hands and support too. You know what I mean? We can't just expect it. You got to give it too. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So. That's important.
Very true. I listened to this man, a guy, he said, where quality is established, discounts are unavailable.
Ooh.
Right.
Oh, man. Okay.
I was looking at that down. Yes.
Who was that?
Well, his name was Radico Roberts.
Okay.
And I was like, gosh.
Shout out to Mr. Roberts.
Yeah, that is so true. Like, quality, you know what I'm saying? And people pay for it. If you think about, like, you can't go into a Gucci store and expect something to be on sale. Yeah. It's not going to happen ever. With the clearance section, you know what I'm saying? Like, last chance, I wear that. No, you ain't going to find that in here. It's not going to happen. Yeah, no.
20 items in the store like that.
So my experience is the quality. My credentials is the quality, because unlike a lot of other business, what people are actually paying for is wherever they're trying to get to. Whether that be, they want to drop 80 pounds, they want to be in a two-piece bathing suit. Yeah. Like, that's what they're paying for.
Like their next step.
Yeah, I'm just responsible to, give you the resources to get you there. Now, if I give you the resources and you don't do anything with it, that's not my problem. Right. And, so it's like... Yeah, and so we're in this mindset where people just kind of look for the amenities. Well, you can give me an app, or you can give me a program, you're going to write my nutrition. I'm like, that's all superficial. Like, who cares about that? Like, where are you trying to be at? Yeah. You want to play with your kids when 45? You know what I'm saying? You're going to be able to run and play soccer with your kids? Like, that's what you're purchasing. You ain't purchasing nothing else. And so it's a challenge for me to get people to see that, because we go into things like, well, how many bells and whistles do I get in this vehicle? You know what I'm saying? I'm getting you from point A to point B, and how I do that, that's up to me. You just got to adhere to it. So, but yeah.
I got a random question that I was thinking of too. So we was actually talking in the UMC meeting, that's United Men in Color. And we were talking about just being black sometimes. They said white is like the professionalism way to talk, right? Yeah. You know, like talking, right? You know, professionalism. So do you know? I know we have to do it in like our corporate side, of course. You know, we can't really just be ourselves going there straight me like what's happening. You know what I'm saying? Like what's goody? You know what I'm saying? Like, but like in your own business, do you find a little more leverage with that? Do you get to be a lot more? You know what I mean? Like, how does it feel for you?
People love when you're yourself.
You see what I'm saying?
And I'm a teacher at nature as well. So I love words. I got Webster on my phone. Like, I'll be like, ooh, let me look this up. What does this mean? I love words. Like, I have a good vocabulary, I must say. But, you know, it's people just love you being you. Like, when I come up, you know, and I'm posting a video or a live or whatever, when I'm all like perfect, I don't get nearly the response I get when I screw up. Y'all really like that? I hated that video. Like, oh, that video made me sick. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's something human about, you know, I agree with that.
I can't stand it because I'm such a perfectionist, so I can relate to that. I am such a perfectionist, and I'm like, oh, y'all are killing me. I really got to do this. Let me be structured. Let me have a lesson plan. Like, no, they don't want that.
Freestyle, huh?
Yeah.
I am a perfectionist, but I do believe that, like, as an entrepreneur, you do have to know how to move in many spaces, right? Like, I do believe that, like, I definitely, like, I think we've talked about this too. It's just like being yourself is very, very important because you want to sell exactly who you are. So you never have to change later type of thing. But just, it's really important to just kind of like know what another person needs and be able to give that to them without giving them, in a sense, yourself. You know what I mean? So I just feel like, especially when you're offering a service, is just to be able to like say, hey, here's what I got. And sometimes that's even being yourself, right? Saying, here's what I have for you. Like, I don't need to give you like what I like or what I love, what I think is funny. Like, I don't need to give you all of me, but here is something that can help you, you know? So just as an entrepreneur, just like learning how to function in like many different spaces is very, very, very important, I think, as well. Just if you want to be successful in many spaces, unless you just want to be successful in kind of like one range, you know what I mean?
I feel like that's a big change too, because I feel like business usually never really came with the ethics behind it. Yeah. Like, you know, before. But now you got like brands like Ben & Jerry's being like, we support Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
So like, you know what I mean? Like taking the stance is almost becoming a little more, they almost want to know who they're doing business with sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I do feel a change.
Everything's about balance, I think, right? Like it's definitely about like never give someone something that's not yourself, because that's, again, that lack of integrity. But I just, you know what I mean? But you just never know what space you're in, especially as a Black person. Like, you never know if someone's going to take your Blackness and honor it or use it to not promote you or not bless you or not whatever you. So I think it's important to just give people what you're there to give them, in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, the product or the wisdom. Like, your space, maybe somebody won't receive your personality, but they'll receive your words. As an entrepreneur, you have to be very, very clear in what you're giving people and what you're, you know, what's there that they can take or not take. But really just be specific about, hey, I'm giving you my skill, I'm giving you my wisdom, I'm giving you my love, whatever that may be. You know, that this is what I'm offering to you.
I like when you said take or not take.
Yeah, because like some speeches they ain't gonna take.
Some of this is non-negotiable.
Some of this is not for you. It comes with the package, but it's not for you. Yeah.
That's not included, what you talking about, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and even as an entrepreneur, we don't have to work with everybody.
There you go. He says that he reminds me that all the time. Like, we do not have to do this.
That's kind of how I feel about things, really. Like, if somebody doesn't want to give me an opportunity because of my Blackness, then I'm not supposed to get that opportunity.
There you go.
Like you said, especially now.
Especially now, like, you know what I mean? So, like, if that is where they base this piece off, I'm okay with taking that loss for a little bit of keeping my own integrity. Exactly. You know what I mean? So I'm okay with that.
Because even like it's crazy. Cause like even like I realized it through Yelp. You know, like through the salon, I got stuff on Yelp, Google. And they even made it more now to where you could, you know, click boxes that'll show you when people look you up. Like, is it Black owned? Is it woman owned? Is it minority owned? Like, you know, it allows you to click some of that stuff to even add it to you. And it's funny because then, you know, you're almost like, you know, I'm like, man, well, especially the area I'm in now, I'm like, well, this is gentrified. I'm like, I could click that stuff because that's for me. But, you know, what also are people going to be like, oh, well, I ain't going there now. Like, it's a gentrified area. I could go somewhere that doesn't do that. You know, they might BS to them. You know, like, if I put a sign in the window, how are they going to react? You know, like, they might want to come back to a busted window or, you know, so it's been interesting.
Think about that, right?
Yeah. Like, especially, you know, being like brick and mortar now, you know, like, you know, if I'm just doing through social media, like, stuff, like, this is my first brick and mortar, like, business, like, the rest have been through that. So that I'm like, oh, that's, you can't come and do something with this, you know. Got my cameras up, like, just in case someone comes be crazy, let me see. But you know, like my first week of business, I came in, the door was busted. I don't know, and that was before I had cameras. I don't know if it was, you know, someone coming after me or someone just randomly being drunk walking by. Like, so you realize it through different businesses too, like you got to protect yourself. You got to protect so much more. And you know, like, cause you
even being black.
Being black alone.
You know what I mean? Like, to even have to think it might be because I'm black.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's
That's
crazy.
Nuts. Like, you know what I mean?
To have to think that. Like,
yeah, like, you know. Yeah.
And even like, you know, like protecting like yourself, you know, through social media now, like, do you have to have different pages? Do you have to have, you know, on your personal, can you say certain things? Because like, you know, now what businesses are attached to it, like, you know, like, you know, you can find anyone's information now. So I'm like, you know, if I'm, you know, I don't really have like, you know, I like to promote my business. So my personal is personal, but, you know, like someone might come and find me and be like, oh, he got a shop. Okay, cool. Like it changes things in a lot of ways. Like having to tie yourself to your business and who you are.
Yeah. Nah, I super agree with that, man. There was a question I was just thinking of. Don't you hate? You just was thinking of it, man. Oh, no. Here's what it is. It's I always feel like sometimes people have a way that they think about black-owned businesses, right? And I think something that we have to set a standard on ourselves is just, you know, being a black-owned business, we still want to have that service, right? Like if I go to a black-owned like restaurant,
I know exactly where
I need them to treat me like it's Chick-fil-A.
Yes, please.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, please.
You know what I'm saying?
Come
like,
on now.
I want to go in there and feel like I'm
right.
family. Like I want to go in there and feel like I'm wanted. Like, you know what I mean?
Good customer service.
You know, so that's something that we have to practice ourselves and kind of just push the people like, you know, you should, you know, at some point, just because you're a black-owned business doesn't mean people have to support it. Right? You know what I mean? You should be wanting to be up to a standard as well. Like, you know what I mean? They want to come in here, they want to feel welcome, they want to, you know, leave with a, you know what I mean? I ain't got nothing to cut, but, you know, like, you want to be able to leave good, you know what I mean? And not just support for that. That might be the first reason, but to come back, you want to set that standard.
You up and like, hey, you know, I want to support black, and she's like, all right, cool, go do 20 push-ups, 20 sit-ups. Hit me tomorrow. I'll touch you tomorrow. They might not want to keep supporting you. Like.
That's big, man. Is there something that you do to watch your quality? Like?
Yeah, you know, I try to be prompt in my responses when people reach out to me. You know, my paperwork is in order. You know what I'm saying? Like documents looked over by lawyers. So quality is so important to me. And because, you know, perfection can be an asset and it can be a hindrance at sometimes. But nonetheless, I just want to make sure that I'm actually impacting and changing people's lives at the end of the day. You know, so that's where I get that great joy. Like, okay, this is why I do this. And this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier. Like, you always got to know what your why is. Yeah. Like, why? Because them days where you like, you're like, no, these people, I don't want to do this right now. You just go, okay, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why? And that's deep. That's not.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize like what we go through doing that. Like, there's times where you're just like, I want to be done. Like, I don't know if I want to be entrepreneur no more. Like,
y'all hiring?
Yeah. My friend's getting a check every week. I'm trying to make rent. Like, you know, really, like, and I know even like, you know, coming with time, like for like the Black app, like, you know, that's like that. The name itself is bold. Like, you know, what the service y'all do. Like, how does that even change? Like, you know, is there certain things you could maybe have tiptoe around, or maybe things you had to really be cautious with starting it, or like labeling, or, you know, the marketing for it? Like,
to be honest, that's another reason I love the brand so much. For me, I just feel like we can be black fully. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost expected at this point. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, what do you think it's gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, what do you think it's gonna be? You know what I mean? So that's just why I feel, especially with this brand, you know, be professional. Like, now, you know, don't take, you know, I don't know why people even separate black and professional, because you can definitely be both, and you need to be both. But at the same time, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like with this, I find myself not having to tiptoe around as much. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you guys are calling us. You know what the brand is, you know what it is, you know, like, you know, we laid out, everything's documented, like you said, the paperwork's good. So, you know, I just feel like with this brand, it's a lot less tiptoeing with that, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like Ramond always has to remind me that, like, we're in a different lane now, like, in a sense of, like, hey, you know, we're going to get this. You know, sometimes I'll be surprised because I come, like we were talking, from a faith-based background. And so a lot of what I speak on or what I teach on or whatever is faith-based. That's to everyone. And so when you say, hey, I'm going to stand for this and I'm going to be a part of, like, this very specific thing, like, just that reminder of, hey, that's expected. Like, if people hate, that's expected. If people don't want to support because of this one fact, that's expected. And so just like the other part of an entrepreneur before you even become an entrepreneur is count the cost. Like, who's going to reject you? Who's going to love you? That way, when it comes, you can just let that slide right off the back, because it's just not even part of the journey.
There's nobody that's for everybody.
There's not. And it's also, it doesn't matter. Like, there's plenty of people who everybody hates you and they're still successful. So just make whatever you do be about helping people and providing a certain resource, because then you'll win. But if it's about, like, will they like me? Will they not like? You'll always lose, because it's about, you know what I mean, that approval in a sense. And so I think with the Black app, we made a decision. It's like a very clear one, and we just have to constantly, like you said, stick to it and constantly reconfirm and redecide that, hey, we choose this.
Yeah. And I think it's cool because, you know, you think back even to, like, your ancestors. Like, the reason we're able to do the things we are is because of, you know, our grandpas, our grandmas, our greats. Like, yeah, they took them chances. They said, look, we're doing this. We're going, whether it's sit-ins, you know, marches, whatever it is. They took the opportunity. We got to do it. It might be a different, you know, we still out the protesting, doing stuff now. That stuff hasn't changed. Yeah. But now we can also change it in a different way as, hey, all right, we're going to get our own piece of the pie now. Like, we're not going to ask for it.
And it's a black pie.
We're going to make our pie.
We're not even going to lie. Like, it's a black pie.
We're making our pie. We ain't going to...
Yeah, we're not asking you for ingredients, bro. Like, it's a black-ass chocolate pie, bro.
Blackberry.
Like, these are black pies, people. Yeah.
I'm thinking about that scene from Life.
Hello. I just watched that the other night. I love that scene. I love Life. I just seen that the other night. That's so funny.
Well, I appreciate y'all coming, man. This was super dope, man. And I think a lot of people need to hear what we just talked about, man. So I appreciate y'all for coming, but really appreciate y'all just for what y'all do in entrepreneurship, man.
Absolutely.
Super dope, man.
That's good.
God bless you.
Amen. Amen. Yes. Yes.